talk about when Dad got his second buck since 1964. He got a buck the year JFK was shot, and he hunted on the East Fork every year after. And I started going with him, of course, when I was 12. And I think I was in high school and was out in the usual stand. Craig and Ron were there with us, and Joe, of course. And I think I had the Spanish War rifle. Anyways, I'd been sitting out for about 3 hours and I had to pee. So I went off and found a good spot and then put my pants down and peed, and sure enough, a buck walked about 50 yards away. I had my pants down, gun props. So I had my pants down still, and I really slowly picked up my gun, and he stuck behind a tree. He stood there. And somehow he got wind of me and he took off away from me, so I fired off a shot. And he kept going, and about 3 seconds later, Dad got him. So that was his second buck since 1964. When he found him, he said, "God damn it, Carrie, you shot his antler off." So it was a wonderful. I got a piece of with my pants to it. So if anyone else is ready, pass the microphone on. Carrie. Oh, Tim.
My name's Tim Flood. I was a student of Tom's, graduated in 1978. And a bunch of stories, as most of us can. I'll tell a couple quick ones, I hope. First time I met Tom, I went up to his office and it seemed spacious, and there in the middle of the floor was a spittoon, and it was surrounded by newspaper, and the spittoon was nearly immaculate, but the newspaper, and if you ever remember Tom, he used to go, ah. That's how he used to chew. But one day Tom came downstairs to the where the students hung out, and he was real grumpy, and he said, "What happened? They made me put my spittoon away." Apparently there were some complaints, and so I saw him, "Oh, why, Tom?" So I went up to visit Tom sometime thereafter, and I walked in. Tom's got a great big chew in his mouth. The newspaper's gone, the spittoon's gone. He's talking like opens his drawer. Spits into it, he put the spittoon in his drawer. The drawer was nearly immaculate, but all around. The other thing is, I was a hack stealing guitar player, so I had two opportunities to go to the Yukon with Tom, and we spent a lot of nights around a campfire singing songs. And one of his favorites was Irene Goodnight. Probably many of you have heard that. And I spent these past 40 years trying to forget many of the verses that I learned from Tom as I proceeded through life. But one last one. So Russ Henning is my class. We drove down today and we were talking. And I was telling Russ that one of the formative events in my entire life was going to that first field camp. It was tough, it was rugged, but Tom's enthusiasm for geology, his enthusiasm for life was incredibly contagious. And when I finished field camp, I always thought, boy, if I can stay in this field, if I can somehow figure out a way to stay in geology, I'm gonna. So I've been teaching up at St. Norbert for the last 30 years, and I've run tons of field trips. And I very often think about TS, but I don't sing Irene Goodnight around the fire. I can't do that. But Tom also introduced me when we were up at field camp to Robert Service. And I'll see if I can remember this one. This is one that reminds me of Tom. Can you recall, dear comrade, when we tramped God's land together, and we sang the old Earth song, for our youth was very sweet, and we drank and we fought and we lusted as we mocked a tie and tether, along the road to anywhere, the wide world at our feet, along the road to anywhere, when each day had its story, and time was still our vassal, and life's just still and stale. Peace and fathom filled our hearts as bathed in amber glory. Along the road to anywhere, we watched the sunsets pale. But alas, the road to anywhere is pitfalled with disaster. There's hunger, want, and weariness. Oh, we loved it so. So on we tramped exultantly. No one was our master. No one guessed what dreams were ours, as hiking heel and toe. We tramped the road to anywhere, the magic road to anywhere, such dear, dim years ago.
My sisters and I were both born before the second wave of feminism. But one thing I'll say about my father was that he always raised us with no limitations and a belief in ourselves and we could do anything. And I think that might have come from his own upbringing, which, you know, was a little bit benign neglect and a little bit of belief by his parents. But he told me the story of his first deer hunt when he was 12 years old. His father was getting ready to go and his mother said, "Don't you think Tommy wants to go? He's 12 years old and he can shoot." And his father said, "Tommy, do you want to go deer hunting?" And he said, "Yes, yes." "Well, get ready to go. We're leaving in an hour." So he went and packed everything he thought one should take on a deer hunt, and off they went. And his first day in the woods, he got lost. He had his gun and he had his coat, and he barely had enough to stay warm. And he said he eventually stumbled on another deer hunter, a guy sitting against a tree. And he said, "You know, I'm lost. I don't know how to get back to the river." And he said, "Okay, well, I'll take you back, but not till I finish this fifth of bourbon." So he sat down by the tree with this guy and he finished his bourbon, and eventually he took him back to the river and he found his way back to camp. And that's kind of the way he raised us. But always with the sense that he believed that we could handle any situation, that we had common sense, and so off we would go. And I don't know if many of you know that when he was 22 years old, he almost lost his life falling through the ice skating on Lake Mendota. He had gone out after dinner to skate, and the ice was perfect on the other side of the pressure ridge. So he stepped over and was skating along and went through, and he dislocated his shoulder when he fell through the ice. And he started calling for help. I don't know how long he was in the water, but a woman who lived on the bluff above my grandparents heard someone calling for help, and she called my grandfather and said, "Oh, I think there's an ice fisherman who's gone through the ice. Can you go out and rescue him?" And he said, "Okay, Bobby, where's Tom?" And Bobby said, "Tom went ice skating." So he ran out to the lake, you know, not kind of knowing he was going to rescue his own son, and they laid planks out and they hauled him out. And when I was in 5th grade, I went to my dad and said, "Dad, is the ice safe to skate?" He said, "Hell if I know, go see for yourself." So I want to tell one last story. Before field camp, when we were all pretty little, I think, Kate, you must have been 8, I think I was 7, Leslie was 5, and Carrie was 3.
Joe wasn't around.
Joe wasn't around yet, and I know my dad always wanted a son. He wanted a daughter, but he got 4 daughters, but he always wanted a son. But he finally made the best of it. And he went out and he bought us all cane poles and rigged them up, and he drove us out to a nearby reservoir where they had stocked it with fish. And we all got in the duck boat, 4 little girls and my dad. And he spent the whole time baiting our hooks with worms because we wouldn't touch them, taking our fish off the hooks because we wouldn't touch them. And every time he wasn't rowing the duck boat, Carrie would start crying because she thought the boat was going to sink. And we never did that again. At any rate, my dad lived a life of high adventure, love and passion, and although this is incredibly sad and I will miss him so much, I'm so happy he lived his life the way he wanted to. He died in his house on the lake, and I'm lucky to be his daughter.
All right, oh my gosh, my name is Linda. I'm a Leschke, if anybody's from town. My dad's a doctor here in town. The Laudons were my second family. So, you know, Kate and I, second grade, I think, from second grade on when they moved here to town, we've been together. And, you know, I grew up in this doctor's house, and you were supposed to be a doctor or a nurse when you grew up or whatever. But I have to say that Tom was, the whole family was such an influence on me. As far as me as a woman, I mean, women could go on and do anything where, you know, my dad said, well, you're a doctor's daughter, you should be a nurse. And it's like, really? I should have been a doctor? Maybe, I don't know. But because of Tom, I became an anthropologist. But I mean, he was such an incredible and smart person that I knew that I could be what I wanted to be, and I could. Women were smart, and women could do something, and I mean seriously. And you guys are telling all these crazy field camp stories. Kate would come home and tell them, and I was at a few of the after parties that were pretty wild. I remember, oh my gosh, I was like a freshman in high school. I was after freshman year in high school, and Kate would come back, and we'd come back, and I think we waited, no, you said, you have to wait until mom and dad have had a couple of drinks and then we can have whatever we want. I was like, yeah, so we're like 14, 15 years old, and all of a sudden I'm looking around, and Kate's gone, and I'm like, where's Kate? And Grandma Mary was still around, and she goes, I think Kate went to bed. And I'm like, okay, and then a couple of guys were like, okay, we're gonna go out and go swimming, and I'm like, well, that sounds like fun, we'll go out and go swimming. Little did I know they were skinny dipping. So I'm out there with 15 years old with all these guys. Anyway, it was fun, and I'm scared of fish too, so I had to do it. Anyways, Tom was kind of like a second father to me. He opened doors that I didn't know could open for me, and even as time went on, and Kate moved on, and I moved on, and I came back to Oshkosh, and I'd run into Tom here and there at McDonald's or whatever, and it was always, you know, he remembered me, and he remembered everything about my family, and so, you know, definitely going to be missed. A lot of good times, a lot of good times. Anybody else?
I don't know how this thing works. You can probably hear me without it. In fact, I've never used one of these. I gave a lecture at Oakfield Quarry one time, and everybody out here could hear me just fine. So, I'm Gerald Gutowski, affectionately known by TS as Gut Bomb. He looked at me one time. I'm about 70 pounds heavier than he said, Gut Bomb! Yeah, that's what I was known ever since. Okay. I have to share one story, and I could share about 10,000 because we spent a lot of time together. Most of the ladies here wouldn't want to hear most of them anyway. So, but, I'm newly married to my wonderful wife in Oshkosh, and I think I was in school there at Oshkosh for about 6 or 7 years, and I was about halfway through it. I had to keep her in the apartment because anybody sees those big maps that probably are still up on the wall. I'm the one that hung them up there. I get a call on a Saturday, and Gut Bomb! Oh yeah, hi TS, you know, I'm in Madison. Well, that's cool, you know. You don't understand, I'm giving a presentation. Well, that's really nice, TS. My slides are on my desk in my office in Oshkosh. There's a Greyhound that leaves in 15 minutes. If you can get over there and get them to the Greyhound, I'll have them for my presentation. I had a 750 Honda. I just made it to the Greyhound station, which was down on Main Street, and all that stuff ripped down the condos there, and he got his slide. You remember me, Jesus? Oh, yeah. Our field trips to the Black Hills.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. The mall.